I shouldn't be showing you this, but here you are. And once you hear what comes next, you'll never see your father's advice the same way again. You were raised to be stable, to be good, to be nice, to play by the rules. But what if I told you that the very things your father taught you are the same things that kept him powerless? No one warned you that most men go to their graves never understanding how the world actually works. That strength, influence, loyalty, even love, all of it obeys rules your father never knew. Rules Machiavelli wrote 500 years ago, and that modern men are still too scared to say out loud. This video is a confrontation, a reckoning between who you were told to be and what you were actually born to become. It's not comfortable, it's not safe, but it's real. And if you stay until the end, you'll walk away with something most men never earn: strategic clarity, emotional armor, and power that doesn't ask for permission. This isn't about being manipulative. It's about seeing through the illusion and finally learning to play the game they swore didn't exist. If that's what you've been waiting for, subscribe right now, because after this, you won't be able to go back to the man you were. Let's begin with the first lie you inherited. If you speak clearly, if you tell the truth, if you use logic, people will understand. No, they won't. And deep down, you've seen this already. You've watched someone ask for advice, then ignore it because it made them uncomfortable. You've made the smarter point in a meeting and got dismissed because you weren't loud enough. You've told a woman exactly what she needed to hear and watched her walk away anyway. That's because people aren't moved by facts. They're moved by feeling. Emotion beats logic every time. Your father believed we lived in a rational world where clear thinking leads to fair results, but Machiavelli knew better 5 centuries ago. Men are driven by love and fear, but if you must choose, choose fear. He wasn't praising cruelty. He was exposing the code. Fear and desire move people. Logic doesn't. Reason is a whisper. Emotion is a war drum. Psychologists now call this cognitive dissonance, when people reject truth that challenges their identity. They don't update their beliefs. They twist reality to protect their ego. That's why facts rarely win arguments, and why honest men often go unheard. Machiavelli put it simply: do not try to convince men of what is good for them. Show them what flatters them. Truth without persuasion is just noise. We obey stories, not statistics. We follow image, not accuracy. That's why marketers outperform experts, why cult leaders attract millions and professors stay broke. So, if you want influence, stop trying to be right. Frame your truth to resonate. Use tone, timing, presence, identity, because people don't respond to truth until they feel something. Stop chasing logic. Start learning leverage. It's what no one told your father, and it's what you're learning now. Your father probably told you that loyalty is everything. Be loyal to your friends, be loyal to your company, be loyal to your woman. He said it with pride, like it was a badge of honor passed down through generations, but he forgot to tell you the second half. That loyalty without reciprocity is just self-betrayal. Niccolo Machiavelli didn't romanticize loyalty, he dismantled it. He wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." Translation: what was true yesterday can be discarded today if reality demands it. Because loyalty isn't a virtue, it's a transaction. And if one side keeps paying while the other side keeps taking, it's no longer noble, it's just stupid. Look around you. The friend who only calls when he needs something, the employer who demands sacrifice but lays you off by email, the woman who expects monogamy while she keeps her options open. They're not loyal, they're strategic, and if you're not, you're prey. This is the betrayal no one wants to name. You were trained to feel guilt for walking away from people who stopped deserving you. But Machiavelli would call that guilt what it is, a control tactic. Loyalty, in his view, should be conditional. It should be measured. It should be earned. Be generous with your loyalty, he might say, but ruthless in withdrawing it. Because the man who gives loyalty without return isn't brave. He's not noble. He's just convenient to use. And yet, we shame men for protecting their energy. We call them cold, guarded, selfish, when in reality, they've just learned not to die for people who wouldn't bleed for them. That's the new rule. Don't burn for those who wouldn't light a match for you. Not in friendship, not in love, not in business. Your father meant well, but Machiavelli saw the game clearly, and now, so do you. No one wants you to know this because it makes you dangerous. Conflict isn't the exception, it's the rule. They taught you to be the bigger man. They told you real strength is staying calm, turning the other cheek, rising above the noise. They made you believe that avoiding confrontation makes you evolved, enlightened, civilized. But Machiavelli saw what they didn't want to admit. If you avoid conflict, you don't prevent it, you just lose it quietly. Every man who's ever had his boundaries pushed, his dignity undermined, his silence mistaken for weakness, knows exactly what I'm talking about. Because conflict isn't just raised voices or fists. It's positioning, it's power, it's who sets the terms. Let me give you a real example. A man works hard at his job. He never stirs drama, always respectful. He thinks, if I stay out of politics, my work will speak for itself. Then one day he's passed over, again, and someone less qualified but more aggressive takes the role. That wasn't a surprise. It was a power vacuum, and someone else filled it. Modern behavioral science calls this dominance hierarchy theory, the idea that in any group of mammals, humans included, individuals unconsciously establish rank, and the men who don't assert themselves don't float above that system. They just fall to the bottom of it. You think you're avoiding war, but the battle was happening the moment you walked in the room, in silence, in posture, in tone, and if you weren't playing, you were being played. Same goes for relationships. The man who avoids tough conversations, the one who bites his tongue, keeps the peace, always yields to avoid upsetting her. He thinks he's keeping love intact, but what he's really doing is handing over the frame of the relationship. And once a woman senses you fear confrontation more than you fear losing her, the power dynamic shifts forever. This isn't about becoming a bully. It's about refusing to be a ghost in your own life. Because the world is full of men who thought being nice would save them from conflict, and now they live in quiet frustration, silenced by the very values they were told would protect them. Machiavelli's truth hits hard here. The man who is prepared for conflict rarely has to engage in it. In other words, the lion doesn't roar to prove he's strong, he roars to remind you he doesn't need to. So prepare yourself not for fights, but for frames, the unspoken negotiations of power that happen in your career, your home, your everyday life. Train not just your fists, but your mind, your voice, your presence. Because if you're not prepared to defend your position, someone else is already rehearsing their move to take it, and they'll do it with a smile. Your father told you to be honest, to just be yourself, to let your work speak for itself. And maybe you believed him, until the world started rewarding the men who spoke louder, dressed sharper, and played the game better. Meanwhile, you stayed real, you stayed quiet, you stayed overlooked. There's a painful truth here, and Machiavelli said it centuries ago. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. He understood something most men still don't. Reality doesn't matter if no one can perceive it. In a world of optics, what people see is more powerful than what's true. Your character, irrelevant if it's invisible. Your competence, worthless if no one notices. Your effort, meaningless if the wrong people are watching. This is what modern psychology calls impression management, the strategic control of how others perceive you. And whether you know it or not, you're always doing it. The question is, are you doing it with intention, or just hoping people see the real you? Let me give you an example. The nice guy who thinks authenticity means oversharing, telling people about his problems, his fears, his trauma, believes he's being real. But in reality, he's broadcasting weakness without value. Because strategic authenticity isn't about showing everything. It's about revealing the parts of you that serve the moment and concealing what doesn't. This isn't deception, it's calibration. In marketing, we call this positioning. defining how you want to be perceived before others define it for you. It works in brands, it works in politics, and it works in men. Because here's the bitter truth your father never told you. You can be a good man, a smart man, a loyal man, but if people don't perceive power, they won't assign value. And when men complain that they're misunderstood, it's usually not because the world is unfair, it's because they refused to participate in their own narrative. So stop waiting to be discovered. Stop hoping to be recognized. Decide your presence. Craft your signal. Control what they see before someone weaker tells your story for you. That's what Machiavelli knew, and now you do too. They won't say this in school, and your father wouldn't dare say it out loud, but I will. Stability is not strength, comfort is not safety, and contentment, that's the quiet death of greatness. You were told to find a good job, to settle down, to be content. At first it sounded like wisdom, it even felt like love, but it wasn't love. It was a lullaby for men they didn't want to see rise too far. Because here's what no one told you. Comfort is the most seductive form of decline. It doesn't strike, it softens, it dulls your edge, it makes you predictable, and eventually it makes you forget who you could have become. Machiavelli didn't write essays about comfort because men of power didn't entertain it. In The Prince, there is no praise for stability. There is only respect for action, for adaptability, for restlessness. Fortune, he wrote, is a woman, and if you wish to master her, you must beat her down. Not with softness, but with boldness, with edge, with discomfort. Today, we've replaced that edge with cheap dopamine and padded lifestyles, endless entertainment, instant gratification. You deserve a break culture, even when you haven't earned one. You're told to find peace before you've even entered the war. Told to rest before you've built anything worth protecting. That's how they get you, not with violence, but with soothing lies. So here's the truth. If your days are predictable, your future will be too. If your life feels safe, it's probably stagnant. Power grows where discomfort lives. Machiavelli didn't say it outright, because the men he wrote for already knew it. Now you do too. You've heard this one your whole life, haven't you? Just be nice, be a good guy, and good things will happen. Women want someone who's kind, sweet, emotionally available. Let me tell you the truth, they buried under all that. They told you to be nice because they wanted you to be easy to control. Niccolo Machiavelli never once said, be nice. What he did say was this: men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims. In other words, most people are wired to obey what feels easy, and nice guys are the easiest targets in the room. Let me break this down for you. Nice is not the same as good. Being nice is about making others comfortable, even at your own expense. It's the avoidance of discomfort disguised as virtue. It's conflict aversion, people-pleasing, excessive agreeableness. There's a psychological term for this: fawning. It's a trauma response, just like fight, flight, or freeze. Fawning means you try to earn safety by appeasing the person who might harm or abandon you. Now, ask yourself, how many times have you agreed when you should have spoken up? How many times have you stayed silent just to keep the vibe chill? How many times have you said yes when every cell in your body screamed no? Your father may have taught you that niceness is strength, but what if he was just trying to survive? What if his father broke him down, taught him not to raise his voice, not to push back, not to be too much? This is the cycle Machiavelli would have broken. He wouldn't tell you to be rude, he'd tell you to be sovereign. Because kindness backed by strength, that's leadership. But niceness without boundaries, that's bait. Look at the men the world truly respects. Presidents, CEOs, war generals, thought leaders. They're not cruel, but they're not soft either. They're precise. They know when to say no. They're not afraid to disappoint the people who don't matter. They don't beg for approval. And the irony, when you stop chasing validation, you start receiving respect. So here's the truth they never wanted you to learn. Nice guys don't finish last because the world is evil. They finish last because they traded their edge for acceptance, and no one rewards that. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology caught up. He didn't write about how to be loved, he wrote about how not to be ignored. And now that you know the difference, you can stop being pleasant. and start being powerful. Your father told you, good things happen to good people. That's what his father told him, and that's what society needed him to believe. But Machiavelli laughed at that idea. A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good. He wasn't saying be evil, he was saying this: most people aren't good, they're just well-behaved, and only when it suits them. You've seen this. The man who preaches honesty until he's about to lose status. The leader who claims to serve the people, but caves to pressure when it affects his reputation. The girl who says she wants integrity until her emotions override her morals. Modern morality is theater, and the costume is useful. Why? Because image still matters, especially in a world obsessed with signaling virtue. This is what philosophers now call virtue signaling. It's when someone performs morality in public to gain social approval, with no real sacrifice behind it. It's empty, it's optics, and it works. That's what Machiavelli understood. Perception of morality matters more than actual morality, especially in power. So what do? You don't become immoral, you become conscious. Be good by choice, not programming. Be ethical, but not obedient. And understand that playing the part isn't the same as playing the game, because the man who confuses his goodness with invincibility, he's the first to be eaten by those who wear the mask better than him. I grew up thinking that if I followed the rules, I'd be rewarded. That if I stayed kind, respectful, reasonable, useful, life would meet me halfway. It didn't. The world didn't punish me, it ignored me, and that's worse. I didn't realize that safety was never real. It was a story sold to keep me compliant. That while I was learning how not to upset people, other men were learning how to move them. While I was told to be liked, others were learning how to be respected. It took too many losses to understand what Machiavelli had already written. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. I spent too long being neither, until one day I looked in the mirror and realized I wasn't a man. I was a collection of fears dressed up as politeness. So I burned it, all of it, and I rebuilt, one piece at a time. I said no when I used to say yes. I walked away when loyalty wasn't mutual. I stopped apologizing for having edges. I started speaking like someone who had something to lose. That's when I stopped being nice and started being dangerous. You weren't taught to be powerful. You were taught to be pleasant, to be polite, predictable, harmless. They dressed it up as maturity, as wisdom, as virtue. But Machiavelli didn't write for the polite. He wrote for the prince, for the man forced to navigate a world that smiles to your face while sharpening knives behind your back. A world that punishes hesitation, that rewards image over essence, that respects danger more than decency. And here's the truth they never gave you, the truths your father couldn't teach you because his father never taught him. That people aren't moved by logic, they're moved by emotion. That loyalty without reciprocation is exploitation. That your reputation isn't just an accessory, it's your armor. That conflict isn't a breakdown of peace, it's the language of power. That being nice without strength isn't virtue, it's bait. That comfort isn't calm, it's the slow death of your edge. That morality for most people is just costume, and the stage is always on. And safety was the first lie, the one they told to soften you before the world sharpened its teeth. You were raised to be agreeable, to be digestible, but now you see it. You were never meant to be liked. You were meant to become unignorable. So from this moment forward, stop being easy. Stop being expected. Stop being edible. Because the man who sees clearly cannot be manipulated. The man who knows these truths cannot be controlled. And the man who understands power, who builds it, lives it, protects it, will never again ask for permission to exist. Remember Machiavelli's final gift to men like you. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But above all, never be ignored.